Hi guys, welcome to the panel for Decentralizing Ethereum. So why this talk? All blockchains are decentralized already, right? Right? They're decentralized, right? Solana too, right? So back in the day when Google engineers were working in a basement, they came up with this speech of or this motto of "Don't be evil," right? And today, blockchain developers, we're sort of in the same situation. We're in the basement and we really hope things go well. And I like this new saying of "can't be evil," right? We need to build guardrails around the fact that it's impossible to be evil so that when we get into maturity, when institutions start coming in, that these systems don't break and we don't start selling data. Um, and currently, all blockchains like Ethereum, they still have a ways to go to be completely decentralized, right? So I think it's important for us to talk about this as a community, some of the issues, what can we do about it, and sort of move forwards. So first, a little bit about our panelists over here. So we have Kristof from Nethermind. We have Lion from Lodestar, Jordan from Stakewise, and Ron from Lava Protocol. And let's go through first, just introducing a little bit of what each of you guys do, what your teams do, and what you're working on today.
Yeah, for sure. Good evening, everyone. So I'm dapplion. I work at ChainSafe. I'm building Lodestar, which is a consensus client for the Ethereum Beacon chain. So core developer. Also participating in Gnosis, leading the merge, and in DAppNode on its original development.
Right. Hey guys, I'm Kristof. I'm from Nethermind. Nethermind is a team of builders and researchers on Ethereum. We help a lot of different projects, from Lido to Starkware to core research. We have our own client. I'm a researcher here, and I've been mostly researching on account abstraction, how to make Ethereum's UX better. Yeah, that's mostly for me.
Hi everyone, my name is Ran. I'm the blockchain protocol team lead at Lava. Lava is trying to be the first decentralized RPC provider. Basically, nowadays, most of the RPCs are centralized, and we're trying to achieve true decentralization through RPC and accountability to services.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan Sutcliffe. I am the business development lead at Stakewise. Stakewise is a liquid staking provider. We've been around for a good few years now, and we've recently announced plans to go fully permissionless on the node operator set to try and help push decentralization in the ecosystem. So yeah, we're quite keen to talk about how we're looking to push decentralization on our side as well today.
And I'm Daniel Lumi, by the way. I'll be the moderator. I'm an independent researcher and consultant in Web3, specializing in L2s, ZK, privacy, and DAOs. So the question that I want to start this off with is, what do each of you consider the most centralized parts of Ethereum right now, and what should we work towards?
Yeah, infrastructure for sure. Yeah, I think the validator side definitely is very centralized, but as you say, that the infrastructure layer, the way you consume Ethereum is very centralized. That's concerning. So,
I guess for me, I might have also said infrastructure, but in that case, I'll mention that there are money Legos that we love in DeFi. How you can build, say, DAI on top of this other protocol, and then Gnosis chain is built on DAI, and then like these other protocols that are built on Gnosis chain. How we have a lot of layers of centralization often with these projects, right? So if any part of this DeFi Lego collapses, then we might see the entire system completely break apart, like doing pottery, and like the whole thing just gets evaporated.
In my opinion, and obviously Lava as well, I think the way that we consume blockchain data nowadays is mostly centralized. We are using two major companies nowadays. One of them is Infora, the second one is Alchemy, and those two companies are great, but they are completely centralized. So if there is like any censorship by OFAC, they have to oblige. And we saw it earlier this year with Tornado Cash, and we really need to invest in a way that is more decentralized way to consume blockchain data. So we have this amazing databases that we currently can access to them anyway by running a node or by accessing through a public RPC. But we don't really have an easy way to do it in a decentralized way. So in my opinion, that's also a major pain point nowadays.
Yeah, I guess just to add, I think what's important to recognize is there's lots of different parts. When we talk about decentralizing Ethereum, there's several, if not more, parts to consider. Whether it's the clients that people use to run their validators, whether it's the validators themselves, whether it's their geographical location, whether it's the protocols that are being used by significant numbers of people, as mentioned by Maker as the example here. There's so many different parts that need to be decentralized, and there's no just one thing to focus here. There's lots of different things to focus on.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of a problem that we have is just because the infrastructure, the base layer, let's say, is decentralized, it doesn't mean that everything running on top of it is, right? So a lot of you guys' answers were based on essentially infrastructure, whether it's, well, oracles is a big problem, right? The validator sets, centralization of validation through larger corporations or RPC, right? So let's just start with the last one of RPCs, right? It's a centralized body that essentially tells you how much you have, what state you have, and you send your transactions through it. So tell a little bit of what you guys are working on in decentralizing RPCs, and how to sort of solve this problem.
Yeah, so I think nowadays we have, like I said, two major institutions that provide RPC data to any blockchain, not necessarily only Ethereum, but we will discuss Ethereum here. So whether you want to check how much money you have in your MetaMask account or any other decentralized application that is using a centralized infrastructure to gain the data from the blockchain, it could be completely censored or changed. They can mess around with the data. They can insert fault running transactions or sandwich attacks, and you wouldn't even know that. So basically, you would want to transfer a transaction. They know what you're trying to do, and they could do whatever they want with this knowledge. They could also control the data. They can also monitor your IP and information. So basically, we don't really have decentralization anywhere that uses centralized RPC providers. Lava is trying to change the game in the fact that we include accountability and privacy and a way for you to consume data without having to go through a centralized entity. So basically, Lava is going to have on-chain security and off-chain peer-to-peer network that you consume the data through it, but the accountability and the reliability is on-chain on the on-chain protocol. So basically, we're trying to develop a chain where you apply as a consumer and as a provider. So whether you run a node for any chains, you can apply as a provider, and then you can start providing information to consumers that wants to get the information for Ethereum, for example. And then you would stake your X amount of Lava tokens, and then you can contribute to true decentralized RPC. So consumers can get the information from any provider, but they can also verify the reliability because they can compare it with multiple providers. So that way you can really reach true decentralization with RPC.
And this is, I know Lodestar is working on a light client, which is another way to sort of do the same thing. You could install the light client directly into MetaMask, right? How far away are we from being able to have a true light client that's able to validate and submit orders compared to
Today.
RPC?
We could have it today if we wanted to.
Okay.
The only thing missing is adoption. So the thing that bugs me in my mind is, do people actually care? Like this protocol and any variation, it will involve cost. Like the ideal of Ethereum when it was created is everyone is going to run its own node. Everyone will validate the transactions. You submit transactions to your node, but that's expensive. Like people don't want to pay that cost. This is why like clients came along. Okay, you're gonna do less, but you'll still have to do way more than consuming an RPC. With what we are developing, that's someone call it an ultralight client because you still connect to us to one server. You can be censored, but you cannot be light on the content of the data, but still has an extra cost. So, I mean, we are doing all our best to make sure it's as cheap as possible and to offer that option to the community, and they are the ones that will decide if they accept the extra cost or not. But it's a question that I really want to see answered, like how much cost are people willing to price in to get decentralization?
And is Nethermind looking at the same thing? Or how far away are we, I guess, from light client where you don't have to connect to a centralized server at all, you know?
So Nethermind, I believe that we're working quite a bit on vertical tree research, right? So we're one of the teams that's involved with the current vertical tree testnet that I think is popping up right now. And so we're very interested in seeing that technology move forward, right? Because vertical trees are one of the requirements to have stateless clients, right? And actually, circling back on what you said, Lion, the cost that people are willing to pay for decentralization, I think the safest thing to assume that cost is zero, right? Like, I don't see why we should expect average people to switch over to solutions where they're worse off. For us, it makes sense because we really care, like philosophically, about decentralization. But they care about your everyday needs. They don't care about the long tail problems. Like, okay, what if like the off chance that like this protocol gets hacked and they get my IP, or like if it collapses, like it's very difficult for people to understand these sorts of probabilities, right? So we should try and make systems which are decentralized and which are better in their UX, regardless of decentralization.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Can I add?
You guys
something?
also.
Yeah. So I think light clients are a great idea, but what happens when, like, as of itself, if you have a couple of light clients, that's okay. But light clients are using a peer-to-peer network in order to communicate with the chain. So if light clients is free and node running is not free, what would happen if you had billions of light clients and only a few hundred of nodes? So then you wouldn't have an incentive to run a node, and then the light clients would be piggybacking on the node runners. So we need to introduce some way of incentive for the node runners to be able to profit from the light clients. And then when you just add the profit, you just get lava.
Actually, I'd like to make this panel. We're changing subjects. Just DRPC versus light clients. It's a fascinating topic. For some other points of centralization in any proof of stake system is the validator set, right? And it is sort of inherently centralizing because the bigger operator you are, the more you can earn and the more you can incentivize people to stake to you, and it becomes this sort of recursive incentive system. Bitcoin's not much better, by the way, but so what are you guys working on? We do have Lido, right, which is a set of permission operators doing a sort of liquid staked protocol. What are you guys working on, and how does it improve on that point of centralization?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a good point. There's economies of scale which node operators experience here. And so one of the things we're trying to tackle at Stakewise is to reduce the economical barrier for solo stakers to actually run the nodes at home. So there's two popular models for liquid staking right now. You have the Lido set, where you have a permission set of node operators. It scales very well, but it causes centralizing effects on the network. You have other models like Rocket Pool, where they are very well decentralized on the node operator set, but they require significant amount of capital per validator from the node operator, so that they have issues scaling. And so our solution at Stakewise, we've recently announced our plans to go fully permissionless on the node operator set. We will not be asking any node operators for collateral. We're hoping to go live early next year. And essentially, we're trying to merge the two models. One where we're trying to find capital efficiency for the node operators, but also being able to scale. And so there's a couple of interesting things, specifically on the decentralization point. with the protocol we'll be launching soon, it will give solo stakers the ability to mint a liquid staking token. So currently, solo stakers are like the gold standard for decentralization. We want everyone to be doing it, but it's arguably uneconomical right now. You can spend thousands of dollars on hardware, and if you're just running one validator, then the opportunity cost is the costs almost don't outweigh the rewards. And also when you solo stake, your capital's locked. And there's a reason why liquid staking protocols have been so popular, and that is because the ability to access your staked capital truly enables stakers to access DeFi. And this is something that solo stakers can't get right now. And so at Stakewise, we're really hoping that through our V3 upgrade, we'll give solo stakers the ability to mint a liquid staking token. We'll also give them the ability to attract ETH delegations with very little collateral requirements on their side to hopefully make solo staking attractive again. And obviously, as a consequence, increase decentralization.
So this is sort of a two-part follow-up, right? Let's say you guys become the best liquid staked ETH product, right? Does that increase sort of security parts that you can actually hack? If you hack the contract for Stakewise or Lido, what amount of risk can that put Ethereum into? Because you can all of a sudden drain a lot of the stake and vote with that, right? And then the second part is how can we improve that risk of any one liquid staked ETH provider having too much control? Can we make like a basket of tokens that's just called staked ETH? And there's many ways you could design that where it proportionally scales according to centralization of this much Lido, this much Stakewise. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So about the hacking side of things and being able to take control of the network, I think the risks of this are very, very low, providing you have a truly decentralized operator set. So in like the worst case scenario where our DAO gets hacked, providing they cannot force our permissionless node operator sets to act maliciously. It's still the node operators themselves that are in control of the nodes, and so providing the underlying operator set is fully decentralized, then that's not too much of an issue. The problem you do have though is that if you have liquid staking tokens are very, very popular across DeFi. They are a fantastic collateral asset. Anywhere where you use ETH in DeFi, there's an argument that you should be using a liquid staking token because it's just an interest-bearing version of ETH. The risks here, however, is when you have liquid staking tokens, which is arguably where Lido is right now. Their token is the main LSD on DeFi, and if you have a token that captures way too much of the pie, so to speak, on DeFi, any risks to Lido can seriously risk the DeFi ecosystem itself. And so this is why one of my main arguments why people say, is it a winner-takes-all market? It's certainly not. Adding layers of smart contract code creates non-zero risks, and you cannot have one entity or one token or one LSD that is the one that is across DeFi, because you have to spread the risk. You have to diversify.
right, yeah, I think that's a big problem also if let's say Aave, hope not, gets hacked and they steal all the LSD tokens, that can become its own risk, right? They can start using this to hijack the protocol to, if you get 1/3 of the stake and most of it is in liquid staked ETH, that might become its own problem, right?
So yeah, so again, holding the LSD itself, it doesn't put if you owned 1/3 of Stakewise LSD right now, you're not going to be able to put the protocol at risk in terms of maliciously voting on chain.
So let's say if you can exit those tokens, then you have
Right.
to ETH and you can restake them to yourself.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing that is a slightly different topic which I wanted to touch upon was the ability for validators to withdraw ETH from the validators. Now, currently, the only person who can control or withdraw or spin down a validator is the node operator. And this is something which we're looking to upgrade because the problem you have is one of the key things for an LSD is the ability to easily recuperate the ETH. When withdrawals are enabled, we need LSDs to be freely transferable between ETH and the asset themselves. And the problem we have right now is that permissionless node operators currently control their nodes, and there's a bit of a conflict of interest where they're running a node, and if the liquid staking pool wants to access the ETH from the validator, it's not within their best interest to actually unstake. And so there's one of the things that we're working on. At Stakewise, we have a solution. It's not perfect, but what would be great to see, and maybe it's something for the client teams to work on, is the ability for smart contracts to actually exit.
0x3 credentials.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
But
in
okay,
technical terms.
if we had that, what about people just doing ransom attacks on you? Like if you say, hey, exit, or you want to trigger that, and the operator doesn't want to and says, okay, I'm just going to slash you.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why there's the element of still having some collateral on the node operator side, where if they are malicious, they're the ones who get to take the brunt of the attack.
So I'm really curious. So you said before on your protocol you want to have permissionless operators that don't have any collateral at all.
Yeah, so there's no collateral requirement, but they still can post. So whereas right now you might need 16 Ether, to attract delegations on our new protocol, maybe you just need 2 or 3. And so it's just reducing the capital requirements for these node operators.
But what if they get slashed?
Then they're the ones who take the brunt. So this is the thing: when a node operator, the ability to calculate slashing risks on the network is you can actually calculate pretty accurately how much you'll get slashed per validator. And so if it's today, if you're going to get slashed today, you probably lose about 1.5 ETH. And so if you're running,
that changes on how many other slashings are happening on the network.
Absolutely.
And that can happen like on a minute.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the thing: we are just trying to encourage people to stake with these solo stakers. At the end of the day, we can't protect against every risk. And if you're a staker and there's a solo staker who's deposited maybe a couple of ETH collateral, but they're running 20 validators, if you then go and stake with that solo staker, you have to take the risk at some point. You can't build in protection against everything. What we're trying to do though is on the liquid staking token side, is to make sure that the liquid staking token itself is over-collateralized. It has inbuilt slashing protection, because that's something that's super important. When the token's integrated within DeFi, you can't have tokens that... An LSD is an interest-bearing version of Ether, but it could have slashing risks. So it's not a perfect token. So that's where we're trying to solve for malicious slashing attempts in the LSD layer.
Right. Like something that makes my stomach sick is if someone wanted to attack Ethereum, like do a 1/3 attack, like slashing a huge amount of capital, they would go for these protocols and Rocket Pool because they can have slashing at kind of flashing capacity for free if they are willing to destroy capital anyway.
That's I think it falls on then the sort of social consensus layer and how that's handled if it's a big enough risk, right? So
Yeah.
I guess that's the backstop that we're trying to put in, but it's always risky, That's why guardrails, we need to build guardrails.
Also, if we're on the topic, can we do a temperature check? Who thinks Lido is evil? Raise your hand. Who thinks Lido is good? Okay. No one cares.
No answer.
What did you expect?
I don't know. It's kind of the biggest threat to Ethereum right now.
You think it is the biggest threat to Ethereum?
Potentially, yeah.
I think a lot of LSD protocols sort of argue that if they weren't around, then Coinbase, everyone would stake with Coinbase, everyone would stake with Kraken.
Yes, the thing I don't understand
I'm
is
devil's advocate on
why
this,
there are no two Lidos. Like, if it's such a profitable, why is there no competition? Like,
so when we launched a month after Lido, and we've got we currently have the same model as Lido. There's a few nuances like on our LSD token level, but essentially the model that they run, we've been able to offer our stakers a higher APY because of our the token model, and yet it's still not enough to attract capital. And like Lido's had the economies of scale, and they've just gone boom. And so we have been competing, and we've been competing very hard. They've kind of won the market in terms of that model. And yeah, to your point, or against your point, I guess, I don't see... We need to innovate, which is what we're doing with Stakewise V3. They can't just be multiple. And the other problem, multiple Lidos. The other problem you have as well is that there's only so many commercial node operators or permission node operators out there. We've been bringing more node operators into our staking pool, but there's often overlap with Lido. And so having 2 Lidos, you're still going to have a lot of overlap in the node operator set. So again, that's not perfect.
I think also for a lot of these protocols, for whether it's oracles, whether it's liquid staked ETH, whether it's most of the points of centralization inside of Ethereum is incentivization, right? And if you have a custom governance token, for example, LDO, it becomes their weak point is essentially LDO holders don't have the same motivation as STETH holders because they want to maximize profit for themselves, right? So I think the question becomes in all of these of like, why do we need governance tokens, right? Why don't we just use, well, liquid staked ETH as a like eigenlayer or something like that to restake ETH and then use those for these services like Chainlink or
Right. Yeah, this is why I think Gazso proposal to have a dual governance token model where HTETH can veto, it's a really good idea. It's a shame it doesn't pass, but
I wonder why. One topic that's been hot. This is less about I would consider it part of decentralization is censorship, right? And I think a lot of the censorship concerns are sort of FUD in Ethereum because even if 90% of nodes start censoring transactions, then it'll just get included every 10 blocks, right? Instead of every block. But I think that's still a legitimate concern that we have in this space that the protocol should be sort of credibly neutral and we shouldn't give the operators the right to even choose, right? So how can we improve censorship resistance? Like we have CR list, well, maybe I'm getting into too technical. I don't think CR list really prevents that if we're trusting
no, why not?
honest majority assumption. Like if most of the nodes don't publish honest list, then it doesn't get included. It goes back to the old paradigm, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a very interesting problem, as you say. I'm not that bearish on CR list. I think I'm hopeful there is research that comes up with something that makes sense because otherwise the Ethereum roadmap is screwed. So let's hope someone figures out.
How do you guys feel about like shutterized beacon chain? Again, that's fairly in depth, but essentially having a new transaction type where the transaction body doesn't get revealed until the next block, and then it's already been included by the nodes.
I think it's a great idea. Having the transaction information, like what token you're using, what information, if it's a buy or a sell, and what token is being traded, to be masked by the encryption and then only being decrypted in on-chain, so the nodes can decrypt it. I think it would help for most MEV attacks, and it would really help on decentralization.
Does it potentially sense or like stop like the good MEV as well, like DEX arbitraging like, across different DEXs and stuff? Like, how does it work across the whole MEV scale?
Basically, shutterized beacon is when the transaction is encrypted, so you don't know what happens inside until it reaches the chain. So I think when you don't have the data as the validator on which transactions are actually happening, like what is happening inside the transactions, you're losing the capability to control on what things are put before or after. So you actually lose the way that you can attack on like the transactions before. So,
But doesn't PBS already do that, right? With PBS, if you have it enshrined in the protocol, you could force the validators to take the most profitable block.
PBS, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a proposer builder separation. So the block builder and the block proposer are completely separated. I think it's a great idea as well, but I think right now it's not an on-chain protocol. So it's not really a good solution until it's part of the chain's protocol. And once it is part of the chain, I think it could really help prevent MEV and obviously censorship related stuff.
I wish we could just go into MEV and censorship because it prevents front running, right? And hence sandwiching. And no one really gives me good examples of beneficial forms of MEV besides just-in-time liquidity that are front running or sandwiching. But we're running low on time, so I guess the last question that I'd like each of you to answer is, what does true decentralization look like, and how do we know when we get there? Like what is that level of cryptographic accountability where we can say, all right, freeze Ethereum, stop making changes. Not that I'm saying we should do that, but I'm saying like, how do we solve some of these problems? Where should we go with it?
We will never get there, and that's the point. We'll keep working, we'll keep fighting, and we'll make our best to our abilities to uphold the Ethereum values.
Yeah, honestly, like there's so many things that's missing from Ethereum still. It's really difficult to come up with like any sort of timeline about when we can get there or like what it will look like. I assume that even as we make progress towards things like, you know, PBS, things like decentralizing validators, we'll find like new problems that, oh, like, okay, this is centralized now, even though we didn't expect that that would be a problem. So yeah, I agree. Never, probably.
But I'm hopeful. Like it's not a never. It's not a bad never. It's a good never.
I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think it could happen for me through decentralization would be the stop of censorship. So basically stuff like that happened with Tornado Cash won't happen, and you would be able to trade whatever you want, how you want, and this is my opinion.
Yeah, I think the last thing to add is I think there's more things we could be doing in terms of like stress testing and like some more scenario analysis. Like Abe is very good at this on a protocol level, and I think it would be nicer to see teams doing it more on a whole network level to identify these pain points and then work on them. Like there was a pain point when Prism was too dominant as a client, and we pushed against that and it improved. So again, I'm skeptical, but also hopeful at the same time that we can identify these things.
I would just add that nowadays we have new tools every year to develop more decentralized layers of the blockchain, and I think it will continue to develop and increase the decentralization. So I'm really optimistic about it.
By the way, we solved consensus client diversity, but execution client diversity. Everyone's still running Geth. Guys, run other clients, run Nethermind. That's a good one. I recommend that.
Run Lodestar.
Thanks for coming out and having a conversation about this. I think it's important for any blockchain community to honestly discuss these issues and not sort of try to hide behind this veil of everything's fine, ETH is better than Bitcoin, Bitcoin is the ultimate problem solved, and I just like this sort of honest discourse and being open about it and asking the hard questions so we can get to a better future. I do think we have a little bit of time for QA, do we? Couple questions there.
Lumi, sorry for the question, but I really like to ask this question to all 5 white male panel. I've seen lots of protocols and projects that facilitate this egoistic kind of macho way of thinking, like let's make more money, but they kind of like corrupt and use the language of decentralization, fairness, liberty, blah, blah, blah. So how do you think, should you or ecosystem work within decentralization of the power structures that lies within the people? How it would look like? How would ideal, well-balanced Ethereum team would look like from inside the team, the service, whatever, who is making a technology? And basically, is this decentralization social possible within our future of our lifetime? Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I can answer. So I don't think Ethereum's inequality in those terms is not on the same trend as the world inequality. So the fact that the teams that are building on Ethereum are the teams that are in countries that have high levels of education and have the capacity to get funding and build these things. So unfortunately, it reflects the inequality in the world. But looking at, like, as a core developer, I would say the power structures are heavily decentralized compared to other chains. Like if Vitalik or someone wants to push a change to the network, it's not going to happen. Like there are so many organizations that will have to coordinate and agree on something that have strong values that it will just not happen. So I'm not concerned on that specifically.
Okay. I do think that, like, this is the thing of technology in a way is agnostic, right? It's trying to solve a problem. It is sort of difficult, though, if you don't have people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different whatever. The values that are reflected in the ecosystem end up being different. So I do think we need some some work with diversifying as well, investing into education, investing into honestly trying to solve the problems we have in this world in general. But I do agree that it's in this case it's a little bit different still because decentralization benefits everyone, right? It is hard though. We do need more diversity as well.
So I have two questions. The first one for Lion. Because you said that now it's possible to run a light client, but no one is doing it. I think that there's an issue of knowledge that people don't know how to do that. What? Or that they exist. Yeah, or that they exist, exactly. Like, how would you increase that? How do you increase the adoption of that by education? Like, what's the best way to do it?
So yeah, I think on specifically the use case of a browser ultralight client, the best way would be to integrate with existing dApps, existing wallets, so that without you having to do any action on the background, that very extra verification is happening. So I think the technology is really, really new. It has not matured enough. We have been talking with players and they are okay integrating with this technology, but it will just take time to a point that's stable and there is enough infrastructure. So I'm hopeful it's going to happen.
Okay. And the second one is for everyone. Whoever wants to reply. This panel was a lot about decentralization of the infrastructure, which is important. But it's not only about that, because there's a lot of outside world dependencies, such as oracles or stablecoins, that also have very important capacity on censoring and centralizing. So is there conversations about incorporating this into the infrastructure of Ethereum so that it also becomes like native of ETH?
I don't think anyone has any plans right now to make like things like stablecoins parts of the Ethereum protocol. The whole idea of
Luna.
Well, yes, beyond that. But yeah, the whole idea of Ethereum was that it's try and be like as minimal as possible, provide this programming language with the EVM that anyone can code things in and like let the community do the rest, right? So the protocol is trying to be very minimal in this case.
Yeah, but I will also add, like, even stuff that are nowadays centralized, like layer 2s and oracles, I think every day now you can see a new project comes up, like Chainlink and other projects that are trying to really push the decentralization also to these centralized layers that nowadays, like, everything needs to start centralized somewhere. So we're only in the beginning of layer 2 technology and Oracle. This is relatively new, and all these stuff are in the progress of becoming more decentralized, and new protocols are coming up every day. So I think we will see in the upcoming years a lot more decentralization in those as well.
Yeah, I think also to shout out to like people like Eigenlayer, it's a very popular topic right now, who their mission is essentially to leverage off all the work we're doing on to decentralize and secure Ethereum consensus. They can then leverage that for providing consensus for other things like oracles, etc. So, yeah, sorry, did you want to jump in on Eigenlayer as well?
No, I mean, no, not for Eigenlayer.
Oh, I see. So yeah, like there are protocols out there that are looking to build on top of what we're on the infrastructure, Ethereum infrastructure, to decentralize other aspects like you touched upon.
It's one of those hard things. It goes back to the thing that I started with of can't be evil. We really need to because I think the ethos right now is decentralization, but the more this industry grows, the more billions that come into it, the more infrastructure starts running at it. We're running an acute risk of centralization in so many. Like, I wish we could have covered all the topics on this panel. It's one of those many-hour discussions, just getting through all the centralized points. We just really need to, as a community, focus hard and unconditionally hard on making sure that the parts that make sense to decentralize, and there's no perfect solution, but as much as possible, we build these guardrails around these systems that even if a completely new generation or a set of people come into the system, that they can hijack.
Thank you so much for the discussion, folks. One thing which maybe haven't been mentioned regarding the light clients is Portal Network. Would you say a few words about it? I think it wasn't mentioned, and I believe it deserves to be. Maybe if you are aware of some later updates, or yeah, generally if you can say a few words on that. I believe, like you mentioned, the issue on the scaling of the light clients, right? If you have many, basically many leechers, I believe that Portal Network kind of solves that as well. So, yeah, how do you feel about Portal Network?
I can comment on that. So for those who don't know, the Portal Network is going to allow a way to access Ethereum data in a P2P way. So what we are working on right now, and with the recent Altair hard fork, we have access to consensus level protocol like clients that allows us to have a client that's censorable, but it doesn't need trust. With the Portal Network, we can be uncensorable because we access the P2P layer and we have trust. So yeah, there are a lot of very smart forks working on this. So I hope they reach a solution.
Coming soon to you.
Yep.
I would add that it's a great stride forwards for trying to make something like a light client and a more decentralized protocol. So I just hope the research comes through well and relatively quickly in a safe way at the same time. Do research into Portal Network. The more eyes we can get on it, the more it becomes important. And it's not external network, by the way. It's or protocol. It's something that would be a public good, you know.
Yeah, we're working on it. So bedrock money, ultrasound money, uncensorable money.
Sorry, I forgot the one. What's your opinion on moving from AWS servers that basically could shut down the part of the network that happened with Solana recently, and how you see this decentralization from the central authorities within the cloud computing and cloud storage, and what's the end goal there? Is it really possible, or we would run these nodes based on all these centralized and corporates?
Run nodes at home. It's cheaper. Yeah, there are a lot. So I will chill DAppNode. DAppNode is doing that goal, but there are many other projects that are doing the same, trying to help non-technical people run nodes at home. But if you can run a node on AWS, you should be able to run it at home. So yeah, hopefully with time that share increases.
Yeah, I think nowadays we have a slight issue with non-technical people trying to run nodes. The entry level is a bit high in my opinion, at least, for someone who's not too familiar with coding. So I guess also maybe there was another panel here about the UX, user experience of Ethereum. I think it will improve as well.
Yeah, and there's some great teams working like DAppNode's been mentioned, like Avado, Stereum, all these guys are trying to lower the barrier to entry, not just like economically, but like the technical barriers as well. So they're doing great work. So yeah, shout out to all of them.
I do recommend everyone run a node at home. That's my hope as a, I was going to say Ethereum maxi. I'm not a maxi. Decentralization, someone that believes in decentralization. I think we also have to sort of set up the system around the fact that they will be run on AWS. It will be centralized. The hope is if enough money and incentive starts coming through this system of maybe it's not just AWS, maybe it's 10 different cloud providers, some local to only parts of Asia or parts wherever it ends up being, and we can decentralize in a more safe way that way. That being said, run your node. Definitely run a node.
Or just buy a rack and put it on a fucking data center. It's not that expensive.
And you can also make money if you run a node. Check out Lava.
Also stake-wise, right? I'm not sure when it's how much time we have, honestly, but
No.
I don't know. Are we out of time? Do we have time?
Can we have one more?
Okay.
So,
we discussed about oracles and about AWS, but I think that the biggest problem will be the stable coins and how we can decentralize stable coins.
Isn't Maker sponsoring this?
What backs DAI?
I'm not from Maker.
Yeah, stepping out of our boundaries a little bit here.
No one wants to comment? I mean, I'm a core developer. This is not my expertise, so.
We have no idea.
That. Like, how do you create a decentralized stablecoin without it being a Ponzi scheme? I've yet to see one. Right, or... Yeah. They're good ideas. We'll see with the... It's kind of like any cryptography. It's a test of time, right? And I like some of the ideas behind some of the decentralized stable coins, and maybe Rai figured out some things, but I'm not entirely convinced there won't be worst case scenarios, right? So I think it's one of those things that will take time to sort of trust properly, you know?
Ideally, we don't need stablecoins. So you would be able to purchase goods with crypto, and you won't need to go through a stablecoin in order to purchase it. And I saw a few projects on the corridor that spoke about being able to buy agriculture land through Ethereum. I think we will see a lot more projects coming up, and like we don't need stablecoins ideally.
I like that idea too, but our brains are very simple, so we like stable things, and maybe it's not possible to get rid of them. All right, I think that's all the time we have. Thanks for coming, everyone. Continue the conversation as a community.